So here's who we chose for the other 7 spots in the Western Conference, and there's some disagreement, maybe more disagreement than I would have predicted. We all agree on Anthony Davis, if he's available to play, Nikola Jokic, Damian Lillard, and Russell Westbrook. I went DeRozan, Karl Anthony Towns, and Klay Thompson. Czar, you've got LaMarcus Aldridge, as does Griff. You both have Rudy Gobert. And Czar, you have Donovan Mitchell. Griff went with Drew Holiday. Please explain yourselves.
Coach, I'll go first.
Okay.
So the reason I've got Drew Holiday in that last spot versus Klay Thompson is that I think Drew has been very quietly since last season one of the most underappreciated stars in our league. He plays both sides of the ball with equal passion. He's been essential for them and really their most consistent player. They've had to play 9 games to this point, or he's had to play 9 games to this point without AD. I think they had a lot of change from the time that Boogie left the lineup, and all that's happened is Drew has consistently gotten better and better and better. Right. And I feel like now's the time to reward that.
Well, there are names that were tough for me to leave off in that spot. You know, Klay Thompson is a name. You might consider Doncic if you want in that position.
Yeah.
And then you could consider DeRozan also in that position.
Who I did.
Okay, so for me, I thought the resurgence all of a sudden after the really difficult start that Utah had, and then when you looked at the imbalance in home and road schedule, it was like at some point they got a lot of home games coming up here. And this guy, I thought, was responsible for kind of leading the charge to get them back to the type of team they were at the end of last season.
I went with DeRozan. I think he's been their best player over the course of the season so far, and the added playmaking duties are impressive to me. In fairness to me, I picked Karl Anthony Towns before the Timberwolves were swept in the home-and-home by Rudy Gobert and the Utah Jazz. I don't know if that would have changed my vote or not, but I think he's been really effective since the Jimmy Butler mess was sorted out in Minnesota. And Klay Thompson has been, after the early season slump by his standards, has been pretty great here the last 6 weeks. And to me, he's just one of those guys, a two-way player who's just an all-star. Like, unless he's terrible,
but let me ask
he's
you,
an all-star.
What about Karl Anthony Towns from game 1 up to game 30 or whenever the Butler thing
Not
and
as
coaching
good.
was
Yep.
replaced? What about those games? Because now they're 2 games below 500 as a team.
Not as good.
Okay.
Clearly.
So does that make you an all-star?
Well, I mean, it's the same argument like for Drew Holiday, for instance. If you were to think about where they are in the standings and whatnot, they're not good enough. But he has played at an all-star level for much of the year.
To me, it's got to be the majority of the season that you've played thus far up to the balloting ending. And then I also look at records. Are teams winning? Because if you're an all-star player, shouldn't you help your team?
You should be affecting your team winning. I agree with that. And so almost, I think everybody I picked aside from Towns is on a playoff team.
And I think that's why Klay Thompson not being on my team is the hardest, because I don't think it should just be that you've played well in the majority of the games.
Sure.
I think you have to play both sides of the court, and I think not having Klay be on the team is very difficult for me.
Yeah.
And if we're picking players I would rather have, I might rather have Klay than several people that we're going to have in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
But
that's
think,
not the question.
Right. But I think relative to Drew Holiday, relative to Towns, relative to Donovan Mitchell, these are all guys that are carrying teams to various different degrees, and that really matters. I think for me, leaving Klay off was more difficult than anybody else because I think defensively he's essential to what they do.